Hi, everybody. So let's say you have an idea, a small idea, and you want to share that with the world. Okay, so you will take your phone from your pocket, you're going to open some social platform app, and you're going to publish a post. You will not author an HTML page from scratch, upload it to a server that you own, and wait for people to find it through some search engine. The web is dying, and I would like to show you a lot of statistics that I gathered that indicate that this is happening. But I've done already a lot about on that on my blog, and you can check that later. Instead, I want to give you the executive summary, which is the web today is like the CD in 2005. It is still relevant, but it's not the coolest thing in town. So these things die out slowly, but they die. When Apple released the MacBook in 2008 without a CD drive, a lot of people thought that was unacceptable. Today, very few people care about a CD drive on their laptop. Similarly, the web is losing space to the mobile social apps. In the beginning, the web was created as the hypertext, or a graph where nodes are documents and the hyperlinks are the edges. And it made a lot of sense for academics at a time where the desktop had the best user experience. Writing HTML was not that bad for academics already comfortable with markup like LaTeX for papers. And the people authoring these documents were always implicit in the graph. Documents were first-class citizens of the web, but people were not. For academics, this was natural because their career is often centered around papers. As the web grew, some people decided to make document equals person, and so the homepage grew in popularity. Then came the blogs, which were homepages too, but they added the idea of diaries or daily posts because homepages were too static and people wanted something that evolved daily. This would eventually lead to the idea of the social web, where nodes are accounts and edges are relationships of trust or interest. The social web makes people, not documents, the first-class citizens. Examples would be mobile Facebook app, mobile Twitter app, WhatsApp, Messenger, Instagram, Snapchat, Telegram, and others. It emphasizes posts, which can be short messages, short sentences, or pictures, and they don't need to be authored in markup or HTML, things like that. The user experience is comfortable for everyone. And the UX in content creation is important because it means the social web grows faster than hypertext. And eventually, it will outgrow the web. I believe we may have passed this point already. We could just embrace this new era and, just forget the hypertext and let things be like they are. But the problem is that the social web is made of a handful of closed platforms, whereas the web is open. And it allows for a lot of innovation and conferences, such as this one here. On the closed social web, there are many problems as well. We lack freedom, we lack innovation, trust, respect, and transparency. Because they are closed platforms, the tech giants in control suppress our freedom. They can and they do ban accounts, even the innocent ones. They undermine our privacy. Innovation on these platforms is dying, third-party apps are taken down, and there's little diversity in the UI choices. We become passive consumers of UX decisions by the tech giants, and we don't have any control over newsfeed algorithms. There's little authenticity and trust. It's hard for us to tell what is a fake account, what is real. So our only hope is to trust the company that's running the platform, maybe to put some kind of verified symbol on it. Or, sometimes people take screenshots of tweets, but that's easily forgeable, and you probably know how to do that in the blink of an eye. So it doesn't guarantee. The screenshot is no guarantee that the person said that thing. So we're forced to trust the platform. We see a lot of disrespect as well, inconsequential behavior, harassment, and hate speech on these platforms. And there's little transparency. All of the data is locked up or rate limited to a prohibitive degree. And it's hard for us to do audits when things go wrong in our online society, as well as it's hard for legitimate researchers to do science on the social graph. Centralized platforms discovered the social web, and it works. It's really great for everybody. But they are not solving for us these 5 problems. And so what if we would take this idea that works and reinvent it with a coherent and open protocol? There's a lot of people trying to do this, and what I'm here to talk about is Scuttlebutt, which is trying to do this. It's a peer-to-peer open protocol for social networks. It was created in 2014 by Dominic Tarr and other Node.js hackers. I joined in 2016. The basic proposition of Scuttlebutt is very simple. Given the social graph, how is the network topology going to look like? In Scuttlebutt, they are the same. So a person's account is a local database on their device. And following relationships are network connections. Alice, on her computer, will write some posts locally, and it doesn't matter if she's online or offline, because it's local. And then she's on the same local area network as Bob, so they can create a network connection because they trust each other. And then Bob can replicate onto his database everything that Alice said on hers. Then locally, Bob can add some comments of his own and posts and likes. And he could go offline for many days, and then he can come back to the same Wi-Fi and replicate that back to Alice. And this all happened on the same local area network, but we should do more than just local area. We should go to the internet. So Bob could have more devices. He could have his phone that could be on a different network, or he could have an even more special device called a server, which has a public IP address. So once you have a public IP address, it's much easier to do connections through restrictive NATs on the internet. So Alice could connect to Bob's server and get Bob's latest content. But it's important to notice that this is not a random server run by a stranger. It's not a company-owned server. Alice trusts Bob, and that's why she's okay with connecting to his server. This is basically a mirror-only server. So if it goes down, then nothing is lost. Literally nothing is lost. Bob can just set up another server and things like that. So we need to get more connectivity modes. We need to get LAN and internet as we have now. We also need to support personal area network like Bluetooth so they can replicate with each other on Bluetooth, and even more modes of internet connection that would allow like direct a green line between Alice and Bob over the internet. This architecture is pretty comparable to the emergent Internet of Things, except applied to people, where in the Internet of Things, simple devices connect directly to each other and spread data through gossip, except here we have people. So there is one full implementation of Scuttlebutt in Node.js, and alternative implementations in C, Rust, and Go are being built. So some of these work partially. Before I go into the details of this stack, I'd like to show you some apps that we've built. Most of them are Electron-based. This one is called Patchwork. It's just normal social interaction, so you have infinite scrolling of threads, you have commenting, liking, user profiles, following, blocking, search, and most of the people use this one. There is Patch Bay, which is more for power users, and it has tabs, which means you can navigate through many things at the same time, and each tab can be a specialized mini app. So, for instance, one of the mini apps is a chess game, which works entirely through Scuttlebutt messages. There's another app called Tic-Tac, which focuses on long-form writing, so articles, and sometimes it looks like Medium. There's a new app with Angular and NGXS, and the app that I'm working on is a mobile app. This is my main project, and I've been working on it for a year, probably 14 months, and it's basically ready. I think I just need 2 more weeks to launch it. So I would like to be launching it today, and it works pretty nicely. But yeah, it runs with React Native, and there's Node.js running as a background thread. So let's take a look at this Node.js stack, which powers these apps, and how would you build one app yourself? So the big picture is that there's the cryptographic identity in the core, and then there's 2 parts. One to handle the local database, and the other to establish peer connections. In red, we have the background process that supports the front end. At the core, there's a cryptographic key pair that represents your identity. This is your account. It's also comparable to cryptocurrency accounts, so there are no passwords and login. Instead, it's more like PGP, where you have a crypto public and private key. And we use the highly reliable libsodium crypto primitives, and the key schema is the asymmetric elliptic curve ED25519. And this key pair is stored as a file in your home directory. The modules related to the local database are in green over there, and they represent you as a node in the social graph. We use the crypto key pair to sign each message that you say, and then store it. And there's 2 parts to the database, the log and the views. The log is basically everything that comes, so an append-only log, and the indexes or the view help to make queries, and we often use LevelDB. The modules related to network connections are in blue, and they represent the edges in the social graph. So we have an RPC API, so peers can talk to each other, and multi-server is a module that manages a variety of transports, so you could connect to peers through TCP or WebSockets or Tor and others. This blue part also uses the crypto key pair to create encrypted channels with the peers. We use a protocol called Secret Handshake, in short SHS, which Dominic created, which allows you to create this encrypted channel given that you know your friend's public key. On top of that, there is Scuttlebutt, not but, which combines the local databases with the network connection modules, and it's a background process, like a daemon. And on top of it, you can install the so-called plugins, which are small pieces of software that do specialized logic. For instance, one of them detects the other peers in the local area network and starts replicating with them. The other plugin will detect messages of type block or ban, and it will avoid connecting to those peers, that kind of stuff. And these plugins provide a nice API that front-end apps can use. On top of that, you can build the front-end apps. There's a simple module called SSB client, which you can connect to the background process over, let's say, TCP or WebSockets. So this is the whole stack, and I can show you how you can use it. We first need to install Scuttlebutt through npm, so we have there npm install Scuttlebutt, and you can start running the background process with sbot server. So once it's running, you can issue some commands to it. For instance, I can publish a new post to the local database, of type post and text is high, and I could put any type I want, really. There's no predefined types. And another command I could issue is to create a new network connection by inserting an invite code. So this would come from a friend's internet server. Okay, the server generates invite codes, and then I will be connected to that server, and the server will mirror my content. But we're also extending these invites for other modes. So for instance, my phone could generate an invite code, and you could use it, and then we find each other. So how do we use the client? To build a basic front-end app, you would install two main packages, pool stream and SSB client. You use SSB client to get an RPC connection to the background process. Once you have that connection, you can use pool streams, which are streams, with operators like map and filter, to fetch the data from the background process. And here, for instance, I'm asking for 100 messages from the local database. And I can filter them by message type equals post, and then I can render them however I want. And of course, this is overly simplified. I'm using console log, but the basics are there. How to make a connection to the background process, and how to read data from the database. And you could also write things to the database by using sbot.publish. You can publish any JSON object. So even though this is like social networking, you can do like type, post, and text is something, but your imagination is the limits. So one of the JSON objects you could put is type chess move, and then it's up to the apps, the front-end apps, to learn how to interpret this. So that's how you would go about building a chess app. You would gather all of the chess move messages, and you would make a state of the game and render it. So not all of the apps know how to understand chess move messages, so we need to make a decision. Does your app hide these messages, or does your app show them? So some apps show them as a raw message, but you could think of this as view source for the social web. What other kind of things could you publish? There's also message type of Git update, so you could publish Git objects and commits on Scuttlebutt, which means that we have built a Git SSB, which kind of looks like GitHub, but I think it would be better described as Git with friends, because you're not, on GitHub you have many strangers. And it supports browsing all of the repos in your social graph. It supports browsing the files, issues, pull requests, listing all of the commits, all of these things. And we use it on a daily basis, actually, to coordinate. So it would be a good use case, let's say, in your company, where you could easily use this in a local area network or even throughout the internet. If you notice, there in the corner, we have digs instead of GitHub stars. But this choice is not hard-coded. Some apps display likes as digs. Some apps display likes as hearts, or thumbs up, or upvotes, or check marks. Apps can decide. So we don't see this as a problem. We see it as a reflection of how humans behave. We all have subjective interpretations. Remember that time when Twitter changed the star icon to heart icon in the whole human population? That is an objective approach that removes choice of expression and interpretation. So we do the opposite. So you too could build a social app with Scuttlebutt, and just the fact that it's an open protocol would solve 3 of these problems. And we've gotten used to this closed platforms making decisions for us, but there's actually huge amounts of opportunity for innovation that are unlocked with an open protocol. I mean, I showed you Git SSB and chess, but you could really go much beyond that. But what about these other 2 issues? And there's something really, really cool that I would like to show you, which I've been reserving as the last part of this talk. And in my opinion, it sets apart Scuttlebutt from any other decentralized technology that I know. We decided to make humanity an essential component in our stack. And this is not a beautiful sentence, because humanity is a technology too. Primitive Homo sapiens took a long time to discover how to do community. And we cannot risk losing this skill for the internet era. It's easy for people to be anonymous and offensive on the internet, especially in a decentralized peer-to-peer system. Scuttlebutt aligns the incentives in a way that humanity, not computers, not AI, solve the hard community problems among humans. We do that by introducing at least 4 properties which incentivize humane behavior: consequence, locality, pool, and interdependence. How do you avoid inconsequential behavior? You add consequences. On Twitter and Facebook, I mean, there's very little consequences to your actions. You can instantly and globally delete something that you regret saying. Maybe someone kept a screenshot of what you said, but that's also forgeable. I mean, there's still plausible deniability there. But on Scuttlebutt, once you publish something, it was cryptographically signed by you. And it may end up in other people's computers, and it may end up staying there for a long time because they may be offline or something. So you can't have instant and global deletes, which make people a bit more careful with what they say. Blocking, what does it mean? On Twitter, if you block someone, they can just create a new account and continue to harass you. And there's almost like no hard consequences for blocking, hard consequences for misbehaving. But on Scuttlebutt, if you block someone, it actually reshapes the network topology in such a way that that person doesn't have anymore one of the bridges to reach this community. So the more they are blocked, the less bridges they have to a certain community. All of the read and write are local first. So you get full offline support. And for instance, in this mobile app, which I built, I'm on airplane mode, you probably can't see, but there's lots of data here. And I used it on the airplane. I liked and I posted. And it means that I have 2 gigabytes of friend data here. And that may seem a lot, yes, but like I have all of these people in my phone. So it's the digital form of hospitality, because my computer and my phone are my digital homes, and I want to take care of how much data I'm using for storage, so I'm only going to store people worth storing, which naturally leads to local moderation. We don't have global moderation. We don't have specialized moderators. Everybody takes role in deciding who is worth staying in our homes. And then pool as the opposite of push. Instead of real-time push notifications, you choose when do you want to get the updates about new content. Instead of free speech, as in your right to broadcast, we value free listening, which is the right not to be shouted at. And most social networks allow you to basically insert yourself, push yourself into a community, but we see invites as the other way around. Someone in the community has to pull you in. Otherwise, you don't get in. Last but not least, we are not proponents of self-reliance. Because with full independence, you would just be a lonely node in the social graph. We see that the real value of the social graph is not the amount of nodes, it's the amount of edges, because they represent dependence on each other. Your friend is your backup, pretty much literally. If you happen to lose all of your data, let's say your computer explodes, all that you need is your crypto key pair, your identity, which is a small file, and then you can re-download everything that you said and liked and did from a friend nearby. And Nothing will be lost. And this actually happened to one of us in the community, and we were positively surprised that, oh, your friend is literally your backup. But now let's say that you also lost your crypto key pair. Then what? One of the new projects that we're starting, called Dark Crystal, uses Shamir's key sharding algorithm to split your crypto key pair or your identity into, let's say, 3 pieces. And then you give 1 piece to your mom, 1 piece to your close friend and your sister. And then this is our solution for account recovery. So that, let's say, you lose everything, you just ask those close people to put them back together. They just press a button or something. And then that's it. You have literally nothing else to worry about. And we want to make it possible to have no passwords, no cloud backup, no companies, no CAPTCHAs. All that you need is your friends. It's a new type of security model built on top of trusting people. But it also has the effect of reinforcing trust between each other even more. Today, we are a community of at least 8,000 people from all around the world. This is a visualization of the social graph on my computer. Each dot is an account, and we have people there from Germany, France, Denmark, New Zealand, Egypt, India, Brazil, US, UK, Australia, South Africa, Argentina, Puerto Rico, and others. And this is also our network topology diagram. Literally, we have a couple of mirror servers there in the peripheries. It's decentralized. And decentralized systems allow us to build unstoppable apps, right? But you have to be really careful. What is this thing which cannot be stopped, right? You don't want to build unstoppable bad things, right? It would be better if we could build unstoppable good things, or hospitality, or interdependence. We all want a free internet outside the reach of corporate social giants. But we also need to restore respect and trust on this very internet. Thank you for your time.
I have some questions for you, which haven't actually been synchronized to my phone.
Okay.
It's okay. The first that I can remember is, what do you think about Tim Berners-Lee's Solid?
Yeah.
Do you know it?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts about it?
So I heard about it. And I think that the more decentralized protocols we have for solving this problem, the better. One of them will work out in one specific way, or let's see. Like, I don't think there's supposed to be rivals at this point. About Solid and specifically, I think like it is basically like a spec-first approach. So they wrote the spec, and they're like, now let's build apps. The approach in Scuttlebutt is pretty much like a hacker way, where we literally just hacked our way through. You know, it's Node.js, and like not everything is super nice, and then only now we're speccing it out. And I think it's working out really well to just make things happen and sort of like do proof of concept, see if people are actually going to use this thing. So in general, I would prefer the sort of hack-first approach, spec later. They're doing the opposite, but if it may work.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry, I'm missing the other question that I've been... Is the guy here from the question? Because otherwise, I have some.
Okay.
I have a lot. Is that you? Yeah.
I have a question regarding, okay, you're storing content from other people, and you thought, okay, it should be fresh, you need to, but when it comes to even learning persecutable content, okay, that it happens to be stored in your components, so you are some way also can be punished by some content that was thrown into your
I was the question about deleting the content, right? Ah, okay,
Yeah.
that was the one. Is it possible to delete content on
Yeah.
Scuttlebutt? How do you do that?
Yeah, so for instance, images and videos and things like that, they're blobs, and blobs are just like resources that a peer may have or not. And you can delete a blob, and then you're basically going to tell to the other peers that I don't have this blob anymore, so it's deletable. And to be honest, like, when I sort of started inviting a lot of people, I was afraid that there would start to come a lot of bad content, illegal content, but I haven't seen that so far, which is kind of surprising. I mean, it's totally clean. The network is totally clean. Maybe it's just a community thing for now, but we have the tools in place for deleting these things, blocking these people. It's basically like if people do something sketchy, in your opinion of what is sketchy, you just don't interact with them, don't build bridges anymore, don't have their content.
Okay. And this question makes me think about what if you build a malicious node, like it's open source, so you can get the code and build whatever you want with it. What if someone builds a malicious node, say that don't really delete malicious posts or enforces hate speech? I don't know. How do you enforce the respect of the protocol within Scuttlebutt?
So first of all, let's say there's like a really bad person using Scuttlebutt, and they would need to be in connection with someone, so they would need to be pulled in, they would need to be invited by someone who may trust them. And then if things go bad, then those bridges may be closed, and it may be that this person ends up using Scuttlebutt alone, but that's still the same use case as a USB drive because it's completely local. So I mean, it's local first, so it just ends up like, it's like a hard drive, So, I mean, of course, we think about these things a lot, and we get a lot of questions about this, but yeah, I mean, there's several aspects to this, and I could spend a lot of time talking about it. There's another podcast which we talk a lot about this issue. So maybe if you want an extensive, good answer to this, I'll refer you to the podcast.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like a human way to enforce the protocol. Like if someone does something bad, you just cut it from your contacts, from your bridges, and then it will happen that maybe he will build a hateful community on their own, but it's just you can get out of it. No?
Yeah, well, I could maybe answer one simple thing is that usually the approach in other networks like decentralized is that there's a button that turns off all the bad people, and that's a very comfortable idea that you don't need to do anything to combat bad ideologies. That's a very comfortable idea. But ideologies are spread on the basis of basic connections. Someone unreasonable with a bad ideology comes up to someone reasonable and convinces them. So there's all this convincing going on, and we need to combat ideologies on that level, speaking to people and trying to understand what they're thinking and trying to tell them, hey, here's another side to that story, this kind of stuff. So I believe that overall, when you empower people with something, let's say computing or paper or stuff, there will be bad people, but I honestly believe that the percentage of good people in the world is a bit bigger than the bad people. So the good people have more sort of like resources and voice than bad people. That's what I believe.
Then, of course, you have to define what bad and good means.
Yeah, of course. And I leave that completely open because that's the point.
Yeah,
like, people should be able to define who is bad people, and I don't want to connect to them. That's it.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Andre.
Thank you.